tutorial 9, I want to just take a step back. There were some minor errors on my part. I apologize. The name here, I had DAWRF. This would not have had any issue with the code that is in there, so it wouldn't be anything to be concerned with. Also here, I forgot a colon. I had it like this. That's going to be an error because what's going to happen is we have a colon here, and we need to have that, so that should have been correct. And one last one, a biggie. This line here was originally typed into here. It should be in the did load. We want to fire it when it loads. I see these methods sometimes, and they, view did unload, view did load. It gets, after a while, it gets confusing, and you have to be careful. Okay, we're gonna add a class here. We need to push a view, and the view we have to push is the add dwarf view controller view. That one was one we have to push. We want to push that one. I'm going to just take that line out for a moment. I'm sorry. I want to go through this step by step. Okay. So, and the reason that popped up, by the way, I'm going to just retype this in again just to show you. I did some testing on this one. Now it won't pop up. You can do it either way that you want. I think what we'll do is, for the sake of argument, I'm going to put it here. I'm going to import. We need it anyway, so we see it pop up in everything. We're going to import the add dwarf view controller. And whoops, I'm sorry, I didn't end it with quotes. There we go. Okay. Pardon me. So now when I add the class here, there it is. So it's up to you. If you're typically going to have to import it here anyway. So import it here, and then excuse me, IntelliSense will bring it up there. But we need to push this view. So what we need to do is, in order to push the view, we need access to it. So we're going to create an AV controller. What I call, sorry, I am not the best typist here. I do my best. Okay. We're also going to have an instance of UI navigation controller called add navigation controller. I'm sorry. Need a cap here. Controller. If you like typing, you're going to like Xcode. Alright, so we're going to push up a view, but it's going to be a view that's going to become the root view, and we need an instance of the add navigational controller to do that. It's not like a view like other views are. And finally, the action we need here is for the button to allow us to push the view, which is the add dwarf ID sender. Okay, so we need to have access to this new view. We need to make it a root view, so we have to have access to the navigational controller, and we need the button to push the view. Alright, our implementation is not complete because we have an action method that must be placed in here. We're going to place that action method right here. As we start typing, IntelliSense will come up very nicely and give us the action method. First line of code is an if statement. If AV controller equals nil, then AV controller is going to equal add navigation controller allocate. I'm going to need to have another brace. Well, initialize. I'm sorry, initialize. Nope, I need a second brace. Initialize. Wait a minute. Boy. Goes add dwarf controller allocate if the initialize with nib name, I'm off in the braces here somewhere. Hold on a second. Coding sometimes. Okay, I've got to close the allocate. That's why I'm not doing it. I keep forgetting. We got to close off the call of the method here. That's why we need a second set of braces. Alright, so we call the allocate method here. We initialize, now there we go, with nib name. The nib name happens to be the same name as the class. We type that in as follows. Add dwarf view. I know what you're saying right now. Why did you make the name so long? Yeah, probably would have helped to make it shorter. And this is going to be nil. No bundling. That we'll get into some other time. Okay. You could remove the braces if you wanted. We're going to add another if statement. If the add navigational controller is nil, right? Then add navigational controller equals UI navigation controller allocate initialize with root view controller, not nib name, and we're going to use the AV controller as the root. So we're going to put that into our navigation controller and it becomes the root temporarily. Close that brace off and end that, and everybody's happy there. Whoops, sorry. And then we got to push the view, which is a self navigation controller present modal view controller. That's the method you want to pull up. And the UIV controller is not going to be the AV controller, it's going to be the add navigation controller. We're going to animate that as yes. Yes, we're doing that. Close the brace and end it. So let's comment. Whoops. Yes has to be in caps. You gotta love IntelliSense, right? There we go. Okay. So here we're going to comment ensure there is an AV controller, and over here ensure there is a navigational controller, or an add navigation controller. And finally, push the view. Okay. Alright. We have to then also, we've now allocated space for these, so we have to deallocate and then also release. We're going to come up here. Here we go. AV controller, deallocate, and add navigational controller, deallocate. Okay, and we got to release them as well. And that will be in our did unload method. Always make sure you put everything under your super lines. Same thing with the add. And the guideline is, if you've allocated, you have to deallocate and then release. If you haven't, you just release. Okay. Well, that's good. So, I want to go back to the method for a second. Right. Well, there it is. So, this should push our view. We're going to save that. We're going to come to the main nib. And we got to link this now. Here. Double click it. It's actually linked already, but I did it in my, when I was testing this, we're going to link it again. And we're going to link it to root view controller. And hook it up with the add dwarf action method. Okay. So if all goes well, this should fire up nicely. We're going to run it. Oh. Okay, so this button now should fire up the view. It does. The background is that gray color. We added that line, by the way. I'm going to just shut this down for a second and show you where that is. That wasn't part of the last tutorial. Right here. I'll leave it with the code posted to the website. But self view background color, make it UI color, the group table view background color. And we'll fire this up again to understand where the code comes in place. Alright, if we cancel this, that dismisses the view. That's part of the code. When we type in, this done key is activated. That's part of the code. Remember we did that? Well, we didn't code that, but we checked it off over here. We're going to write, let's say, Bitsy. And remember we said to capitalize them. When we type enter, we resign the responder. I'm going to just cancel out again here. Notice the keyboard comes up. It becomes the responder immediately when it appears. That was in our code, if you remember that. I'm just going to go over here. Right here it becomes first responder and it's blank. That's part of the code. Everything is done for a reason. So we're going to type, actually we'll type ITSY. And we're going to click done here. And then we're going to save that name. And nothing happens. Or at least you don't think anything happens. We have one more line of code to finish this off. The problem is we've added it to the array with our method, which will appear here. And the save dwarf, we've added to the array and then dismissed it. But over here in our root view controller, there's a line of code that isn't there. We have to then repopulate the table view for it to show it up. And this will appear. I'm going to say reload the data, and that line will be self table view and reload the data. Alright? Okay. Now I'm going to fire it up again and do this again. Okay. We'll type in ITSY and save it. And there's ITSY, dwarf number 8. We're going to type in Bitsy and go done and save it, and that's number 9 and spider. And we're adding them to the list as we go. Now, important thing to note here is that when we shut our app down and turn it back on, only 7 will reappear. And so the takeaway to this is that we're now adding to our table view, but we're not retaining it because we don't have a database or some source of information to write to it. When we get into SQLite, you'll be able to then, what will happen here is not only will you add it to the array, but you'll actually run a method in the app delegate that will add it to the array. And you'll run this in the same method, you will add it to the database as well. First adding it to the database and then the array. And then what happens is when you repopulate the table view, I'm going to run it one more time to close out here. When you repopulate the table view, whether you repopulate it during a runtime or when you start it up, the last change will appear. So if I had added Johnny over here and saved it in here, if I were working with SQLite, it would appear when I loaded it. But because in our root view app, root view controller here, these things are loaded in the view did load, it is a static array. Okay, so that's tutorial number 9. I'm going to post the code for 7, 8, and 9 on the website as this code you see here. And what we'll do in the next one is we'll add a picker view and show you how picker views work. Or perhaps maybe we should add another table view, push another table view first and then a picker. Maybe that's better. I'd like to show you how to push a table view. What we can do, however, I think what I'll do is this. In 10, I'll build on this one more time and add what is known as an alert delegate, which will alert the user and ask them, are you sure you want to add the next name? So let me just run this quickly for you to tell you what I mean. So in tutorial 10, what we'll do is here, I'm just going to type in just letters, random. When you click the save name here, it'll pop up with an alert, and you've seen alert views when you run iPhone apps if you've been running them, that asks you, are you sure you want to do this? We'll do that for tutorial 10. For 11, we'll push another table view, and for 12 or 13, depending upon how far we get, we'll run a picker, and the picker will put another name in here. It'll be a different way of putting another name in this list. So that's it for today, and take care.